Good Lord, you boys look half frozen. Get inside.
Thank you, ma'am. We sure appreciate it.
Come on, hurry up now. Don't let the heat out.
Bless you, ma'am.
You boys look frozen. Come inside.
Much obliged, ma'am. The storm's a killer.
Hurry now, get in. I'll get some hot coffee.
Thank you, truly.
When the blizzard hit Ridgemont, Ohio, the wind chill plunged to 38 below zero. Roads closed, power went out, and the whole town plunged into darkness. On a dead-end street called Maple Terrace, a 72-year-old black grandmother heard 3 heavy knocks on her front door. She opened it. Standing on her porch were 5 Hells Angels bikers, leather cuts, tattoos up their necks, snow caked on every inch of them. One was bleeding. Most people would have called the police. Clara Jenkins invited them inside and made them soup. She gave them her blankets, her late husband's coat, her last bit of food. She had no idea that the man standing at the front of that group was worth more than her entire zip code. And what happened the next morning? That is the part that changed everything. She did not hesitate, and that says everything. Let us get into it. But before we reach that stormy night, you need to understand something first. You need to know who Clara Jenkins really was and why she had every reason in the world to keep that door shut. Ridgemont, Ohio, a small town about 2 hours southeast of Cleveland. The kind of place that used to mean something. In earlier decades, Ridgemont was a steel town. Good jobs, full churches, families on every porch in the summer. You could raise kids there and feel proud about it. But then the plant closed, and then another one closed, and slowly, year after year, people started leaving. By the time this story takes place, Ridgemont had lost nearly half its population. Main Street was mostly boarded up storefronts and dollar stores, the kind of town people drive through without stopping. And right in the middle of it, on a quiet, dead-end street called Maple Terrace, lived Clara Jenkins, 72 years old, retired school cafeteria worker, widowed. Her husband Raymond passed away some time back, complications from a factory injury. The plant had already shut down by then. His disability checks barely covered his medications. At the end, Clara held his hand in that hospital room and promised him she would be okay. She kept that promise mostly. Clara lived alone in the same small 2-bedroom house Raymond bought, back when they started their life together. He built the back porch himself, his hands, his lumber, his weekends. She never changed a thing about it. Every morning, Clara was up at the same early hour, not because she had to be, just because that is who she was. She would make coffee in the same percolator she had used for years. She would feed the 2 stray cats who showed up on her porch years ago. She named them Bishop and Deacon. Then she would sit at the kitchen table, read her devotional, and talk to Raymond's photo on the mantel. "A storm is coming, baby," she told him that week. A big one this time. Now, let me tell you about Clara's situation because it matters. She lived on a Social Security check, $1,143 a month. That was it. That was everything. Her roof had been leaking since the previous spring. She had 3 buckets lined up in the attic to catch the drips. Every time it rained, she emptied them and put them back. She owed $2,200 on a medical bill from a fall the previous autumn, slipped on the front steps, bruised her hip badly, went to the emergency room because she could not stand up. The bill came some time later, and she put it in a drawer because looking at it made her chest tight. Her furnace broke in the cold months. The repair estimate was more than she could afford, so she heated the house with a kerosene space heater and the oven door cracked open, low heat running all night. She wore 2 sweaters and a quilt to bed most nights. She taped plastic sheeting over every window to keep the drafts out. The tape was peeling in the kitchen. She kept pressing it back down. But here is what you need to understand about Clara. She never complained, not once. Not to her neighbor Loretta, not to the Donnelly family down the street, not to anyone. It was not denial. It was something deeper than that. Clara believed truly all the way down to her bones that you make do with what you have, and while you are making do, you find a way to help somebody else. That was her code. That was her religion, really. She watched the Donnelly kids after school several days a week so their mama could pick up a second shift at the warehouse. She did not charge a dime. She left foil-wrapped plates of food on porches when she knew someone was going through it, did not knock, did not wait for a thank you, just left the plate and walked home. The previous summer, she organized the only neighborhood cleanup Maple Terrace had seen in years. She printed flyers at the library. 6 people showed up. She thanked every single one of them like they had given her a gift. That was Clara. invisible to the town council, invisible to the system, forgotten by the church she attended for 40 years. It merged with the parish some distance away, and she could not make the drive in winter. She did not have the internet. She did not have a cell phone plan with data. She had a landline, a radio, and a television with 3 channels. But she had something most people do not. She had a kind of grace that does not ask for anything back. She told the Donnelly kids once while they were eating peanut butter sandwiches at her table, "You do not have to have a lot to give a lot." She meant every word. Now, as the storm approached, the sky went dark in the afternoon. Snow started falling heavily. The radio said the interstate was closing. Blizzard warning through the night. Wind chill dropping far below 0. Clara moved through the house with quiet purpose. She filled every pot and pan with water just in case the pipes froze. She checked the kerosene. She stacked extra blankets on the couch. And then she did something small, something she could not explain later. She walked to the hallway closet, pulled out Raymond's old hunting coat, brown canvas, wool-lined, still smelled like him after all these years. She laid it across the arm of the couch. "Just in case somebody needs it," she whispered. She did not know why she said it. She would understand by morning. Now, here is where the night takes a turn nobody, especially Clara, could have predicted. By evening, Ridgemont was buried. Snow came down so thick you could not see the house across the street. Wind was screaming through the power lines, trees cracking under the weight of ice. Then the power went out. The whole east side of town went dark just like that. No street lights, no porch lights, nothing. Clara's block went silent. She lit 2 candles, set one in the kitchen window, set one on the mantel next to Raymond's photo, turned the kerosene heater up as high as it would go. The temperature outside was bitterly cold, wind chill pushing it even further down, the kind of cold that hurts your lungs when you breathe. Clara pulled her quilt tighter around her shoulders and sat in the recliner. The house creaked and groaned against the wind like it was trying to hold itself together. She was alone, and it was going to be a long night. But some miles north of Ridgemont on the highway, 5 men were fighting for their lives. They were Hell's Angels, a chapter from upstate New York. 5 riders on 5 Harleys heading south for a memorial ride. They were honoring a fallen brother. A man who had ridden with them for over 20 years died of cancer the previous spring. Every year since they made this ride, same route, same weekend. It was sacred to them. The leader of the group was a big man, 56 years old, silver beard, broad shoulders, wraparound glasses, hands like catcher mitts. His name was Harlan Reeves. Riding behind him were Brody, Vance, and 2 others. 5 men, 5 machines, miles of empty highway. The storm came in faster than anyone expected. The forecast said snow later, but visibility was already down to nothing. The road turned into a sheet of black ice. Harlan's bike went down first. The front tire caught a patch of ice, and the Harley slid sideways. 800 pounds of metal skidding across frozen asphalt. He went down hard, rolled twice, got up slow. The others stopped. 2 of the bikes would not restart in the cold. Engines flooded, batteries drained. Brody, the youngest in the group, caught road rash through his jacket. A deep gash ran from his elbow to his wrist, blood soaking through the leather. His arm was going numb. They were stranded. No cell signal. Towers were down from the ice. The GPS showed one town nearby, Ridgemont, just a short distance south. Harlan made the call. "We walk. Push what we can, leave the rest." They buried 3 bikes in snowdrifts on the shoulder, pushed 2, started south into the wind. 5 men in leather jackets and boots, walking through a blizzard in the dark. Let me be real with you for a second. Hypothermia in conditions like that sets in fast. These men were wet. Brody was bleeding. The wind was cutting straight through the leather like it was not even there. Every step was a fight. Harlan kept them moving. Bang! He walked at the front, kept turning around, counting heads. "Nobody sits down," he told them. "Nobody stops. You stop, you die." It took them some time to reach the edge of Maple Terrace. When they got there, every house was dark, either empty or locked up tight, people hiding from the storm behind closed doors. They knocked on the first house. No answer. Knocked on the second. A curtain moved, then nothing. One of the guys cursed. Brody was shaking so badly he could barely stand. Vance's feet were going white. They were running out of time. Then Harlan saw it. At the end of the block, one small flickering light, a candle in a window. The only light on the entire street, Clara's house. He walked up the porch steps. His boots were caked in ice. Every joint in his body was screaming. He knocked. 3 heavy knocks. The screen door rattled. Inside, Clara heard it. She froze, set down her coffee cup, looked at the door, looked at Raymond's photo. She picked up the flashlight from the kitchen counter, walked slowly to the front door, put her hand on the knob, took a breath, opened it, and what she saw. 5 enormous men, leather vests, Hell's Angels patches on their backs, beards, tattoos, snow-crusted on every surface of their bodies. One of them was bleeding through his sleeve. 5 white bikers on a black grandmother's porch in the middle of the night. Everything in Clara's life, every story she had heard, every warning, every reason the world had given her to be afraid, it all stood right there in front of her. Harlan looked at her. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Ma'am, I am real sorry to bother you. We got caught out in the storm. One of my guys is hurt. We just need to get out of the cold." The wind howled behind them. Silence. Clara looked at his face, then at the bleeding young man behind him, then back at Harlan. She opened the door wider. "Well, get in here before you freeze to death. All of you. What happened inside that house over the next hours? That is where this story really begins." 5 men filed through Clara's front door, one by one. They filled her small living room completely, shoulders touching walls, heads nearly brushing the ceiling. Snow melted off their boots onto the linoleum. Water pooled around their feet. The whole room smelled like wet leather and frozen road. Clara did not flinch, not once. She looked at them the way a woman looks at a problem she has already decided to solve. "Sit down wherever you can," she said, "and somebody get that boy to my kitchen table." Brody, the young one with the gash on his arm, was guided to a chair by Vance. His face was pale. His lips had a blue tint. The cut on his forearm was ugly, deep, still bleeding through the torn leather of his jacket. Clara went straight to the bathroom, came back with Raymond's old first aid kit from under the sink, a white metal box with a red cross on the front. She had kept it stocked for years, just in case. She sat down across from Brody, took his arm gently, rolled back the sleeve. He winced. "Hold still, baby," she said. "I have patched up worse." She cleaned the wound with peroxide. Steady hands, no hesitation. The boy hissed through his teeth. She did not rush. She did not apologize. She just worked. She tore strips from the clean bedsheet, did not even think twice about it, and bandaged his arm tight, neat, careful, like she had been doing this her whole life. "There," she said. "That will hold till you see a real doctor." Then she stood up and went to work on the next problem. Food. She had a pot of chicken soup on the stove, made it that day, enough for maybe 2 servings, her dinner tonight, and lunch tomorrow. She looked at the pot, looked at the 5 men in her living room, did the math in her head. Then she added water, opened a can of kidney beans from the pantry, poured in a cup of rice, stirred it all together, and turned the flame up. She pulled out a sleeve of saltine crackers, half a loaf of bread, a jar of pickles she had canned the previous summer. She served them first, every one of them. Bowls of soup, crackers on the side, bread torn into pieces. She did not make a bowl for herself. Harlan noticed. "Ma'am, are you not going to eat?" "I had a big lunch," she said. She had not. Now the cold. These men were soaked through, shivering down to their bones. Brody's teeth were chattering so hard you could hear it across the room. Clara moved through the house, pulling every warm thing she could find. Quilts from both beds, a wool blanket from the hallway closet, an old Afghan her mother had crocheted years ago. Then she went to the couch, picked up Raymond's hunting coat, the one she had laid out that day without knowing why. She walked over to Harlan. He was the biggest, the coldest, standing by the wall because there was not room for him to sit. She held out the coat. "Put this on," she said. "It was my husband's." Harlan looked at her, looked at the coat. Something passed across his face, an emotion he was not used to showing. He took it, put it on. It fit almost perfectly. "Thank you, ma'am," he said quietly. Then Clara turned to Vance. His boots were off. His feet were white. Early frostbite. She knelt down on the floor, a 72-year-old woman on her knees on cold linoleum, and took his feet between her palms. She rubbed them slow, firm, working the blood back in. Vance stared at her. Did not say a word. His eyes were red. She rubbed until the color started coming back. Then she pulled off her own wool socks, the ones she was wearing, and put them on his feet. "Those are my good socks," she said. "Do not you go running off with them." Vance laughed. It was the first time any of them had laughed in hours. Now, while all this was happening, Harlan was watching. He did not say much. He just watched. He noticed the 3 buckets in the hallway lined up under brown water stains on the ceiling. The roof was leaking. He noticed a plastic sheeting taped over the windows, peeling at the edges. He noticed there was no furnace running, just a kerosene heater in the corner doing its best. He noticed the framed photos on the wall, Clara and Raymond on their wedding day. A group shot from the school cafeteria, Clara in a hairnet smiling, surrounded by kids. And he noticed something on the floor under the kitchen table, a magazine, old dog-eared, being used to prop up a wobbly table leg. He could not read the cover from where he was sitting, but the corner of a face was visible, a headline in bold letters. He did not think about it. Not yet. Clara hung the men's vest near the kerosene heater to dry. As she draped Harlan's vest over a chair, she noticed the back, the big patch, the Hell's Angels death head. She knew what that was. Everybody did. But below it, there was a smaller patch, harder to see. A letter looked like a T inside some kind of gear shape. Then he saw the name Elena Brooks, the veteran labor nurse he had hired some time back, the one staff member present for every consultation, every scan, every argument. Her voice was low, urgent, barely a whisper, the voice of someone about to cross a line who had decided to cross it anyway. Mr. Reeves, that woman who came to the gate this morning. I heard every word she said to Dr. Caldwell. She described your wife's condition with more precision than anyone on this team. A silence settled over the room. Not awkward, just honest. Harlan looked at her and nodded. Something connected between them in that moment. Two people who understood what it meant to keep going after you have lost someone who made the world make sense. Vance showed her a photo on his phone. His daughter, 5 years old, blonde curls, missing a front tooth. Brody talked about his mom, lived alone in Pennsylvania. He called her every Sunday. Clara listened to every word like it mattered, because to her, it did. That is who she was. The kind of person who made you feel like what you said was important. In the deep hours of the night, the men were asleep, stretched out on her floor, her couch, her recliner. 5 massive men crammed into a tiny living room, wrapped in quilts and afghans. Clara did not sleep. She sat at the kitchen table, kept the kerosene heater going, watched the candle, listened to the wind, made sure the house stayed warm. She kept watch over 5 strangers like they were her own family. Later in the night, she stood up quietly, went to the kitchen. She took the last of her flour, the last of her sugar, a little bit of buttermilk, and she made biscuits, homemade from scratch, on the gas stove in the middle of a blizzard. She set them on a plate, covered them with a clean towel, put them on the counter for morning. Then she sat back down and waited for the sun. Okay, wait, hold on. I need to pause right here. This woman gave away everything she had. Her food, her blankets, her husband's coat, and she is baking biscuits in the middle of a blizzard for strangers. If that was me, I do not know if I could do that. Real talk, when the sun came up, the storm was over. But what Harlan did next, that is when Clara realized this was no ordinary group of bikers. Morning light came through the plastic-covered windows, soft, golden. The wind had stopped. Snow lay deep on the ground, but the sky was clear for the first time in hours. The men woke up one by one, stiff, sore, blinking in the light. And then they smelled it. Coffee. Clara's last can of Folgers and biscuits, warm, golden, sitting on a plate with strawberry preserves she had canned the previous summer. 5 massive bikers crammed around a kitchen table built for 2. Elbows bumping, knees against the wall, eating biscuits with homemade jam like it was the best meal of their lives. Because right then, it was. Brody ate 3. Vance closed his eyes on the first bite. One of the other guys just shook his head and whispered, "Man." Clara stood by the stove watching them eat, sipping her coffee, a small smile on her face. This was her gift. Not the food itself, but knowing she had kept them alive through the night. When they finished, Harlan pushed back from the table. He reached into his vest, dry now from hanging near the heater, pulled out a thick fold of cash, hundreds, at least $1,500. He set it on the table. "Ma'am, this is for everything you did last night. Please take it." Clara looked at the money, did not touch it. She pushed it back across the table, slow, steady, no hesitation. "Put that away," she said, firm. Not angry, just clear. "I did not help you for money. I helped you because you needed help. That is the beginning and the end of it." The room went quiet. Harlan stared at her. His eyes got wet just for a second. He blinked it away, the kind of man who had not cried in front of anyone in decades. He nodded. "Put the money back." Then he did something none of his men expected. He pulled out a small notebook from his inside pocket. Not a napkin, a leather-bound notebook, dark brown, gold-edged pages. The kind of thing you would see in a boardroom, not on a biker. "Can I have your name, ma'am?" "Clara Jenkins." He wrote it down, careful, deliberate, asked for her address. Clara laughed. "Honey, you do not owe me a thing. Just in case I want to send a thank you," he said. She gave it to him. He wrote it down, closed the notebook, slipped it back in his jacket. Before they left, the men did something that surprised her. They helped. 2 of them cleared the snow off her porch steps. Harlan salted the walkway with rock salt from a bag by the house. Vance noticed the broken hinge on her screen door sticking for months and fixed it with a multi-tool from his pocket. Did not ask, just did it. Brody was the last one out. He stopped, turned around, squeezed Clara's hand, his bandaged arm still wrapped in her bedsheet strips. "You remind me of my grandma," he said, voice cracking. Clara patted his arm. "You call your mama when you get home. You hear me?" He nodded, could not speak, walked out. She stood in the doorway and watched them go. 5 figures in black leather walking through white snow, getting smaller until the road curved, and they disappeared. Clara went back inside, closed the door, sat at the kitchen table, finished her coffee alone. For some time, nothing happened, and Clara figured that was the end of the story. She was wrong. Life went back to normal. The pipes survived. The roof still leaked. The buckets went back in the attic. Same routine. Same quiet days. Clara told the Donnelly kids about the bikers over after-school snacks. Their eyes went wide. She laughed about it. 5 big old boys sleeping on my floor, she said. Raymond would have had a fit. The kids asked if she was scared. She thought about it for a second. No. She said they were just cold. That was that. A good story for the kitchen table. Nothing more. Then strange things started happening. First, a delivery from the hardware store downtown. 2 kerosene heater refills dropped off right on her porch. Already paid for. Clara did not order them. She called the store. The clerk said someone phoned it in, paid with a credit card over the phone. Would not leave a name. "Must be a mistake," Clara said. "No, ma'am. The clerk said they gave your exact address." She let it go. Figured maybe it was someone from church being generous. Then sometime later, a truck pulled up on Maple Terrace. White truck logo on the side. A roofing company. 2-man crew. They knocked on Clara's door and told her they had been contracted to do a courtesy inspection on her roof. Clara stood in the doorway with her arms crossed. Contracted by who? The foreman checked his paperwork, flipped a page, ran his finger along a line. "Client is listed as Summit Holdings." Clara frowned. "Never heard of them." "That is all I got, ma'am. They just want us to take a look. No charge to you." She was suspicious, but the roof was leaking. Had been for months, so she let them up. They took photos, measured, made notes, thanked her, and left. That evening, Clara mentioned it to her neighbor Loretta over the fence. "Summit Holdings," Loretta said. "That sounds like one of those big investment companies." Clara waved it off. Probably some kind of scam. But something nagged at her that night. She went to the kitchen, looked at the wobbly table, bent down, and pulled out the old magazine she had been using to prop up the leg. She held it up, looked at the cover for the first time in months. America's Most Unconventional CEOs. A row of small photos along the bottom. Faces she did not recognize, names she had never heard. She stared at it for a moment. Something flickered at the edge of her mind. Something she could not quite reach. Then she shook her head, put the magazine back under the table leg, and went to bed. And then one morning, sometime after the blizzard, a black SUV pulled up on Maple Terrace, and everything Clara thought she knew about that night changed. A black Cadillac Escalade with tinted windows was parked in front of her house, brand new, chrome wheels still shining like it just rolled off the lot. Neighbors noticed. Loretta came to her front porch. The woman across the street pulled back her curtain. A car like that on Maple Terrace meant something, and it was never good news. 2 men in dark suits stepped out of the back seat. They stood by the car, hands folded, sunglasses like the Secret Service. Then the front passenger door opened, and a man stepped out. Tall, broad shoulders, clean-shaven, silver hair cut short, wearing a tailored charcoal overcoat and polished shoes. Clara did not recognize him. Not at first. He looked like he had just walked off the cover of a business magazine, and in a way, he had. He walked up her porch steps, same steps he had climbed some time back, caked in ice, half frozen to death. This time his shoes were dry. His back was straight. His face was calm. He knocked. 2 knocks. Gentle this time. Clara opened the door, looked at him, looked at the Escalade, looked at the suit standing by the car. Then she looked back at his face. Something clicked. The eyes. She recognized the eyes. "Well, I will be," she said slowly. "The biker." Harlan smiled. "Yes, ma'am." He stood there in her doorway, the same doorway where he had stood shaking and half dead some time back, and he introduced himself properly. His full name was Harlan Reeves. He was the founder and CEO of Summit Holdings, a logistics and infrastructure conglomerate based out of Columbus, Ohio. He started the company at 29 years old in a rented warehouse with 2 employees and a used truck. Years later, that company was worth billions, thousands of employees across 6 states. Harlan Reeves was one of the most powerful businessmen in Ohio, and some time back, he was freezing to death on Clara Jenkins's porch. Clara's eyes went wide. She looked at the Escalade again, then the suits, then back at Harlan. "You are telling me you are some kind of CEO, ma'am." He said it simply. No flash, no ego, but that night, I was just a man who was freezing to death, and you saved my life. Clara put her hand on the doorframe, steadied herself. Her mind was racing. The memorial ride, his brother, the fallen one they were honoring, had been a lifelong Hells Angels member, died of cancer the previous spring. Every year since Harlan rode with the chapter, same route, same weekend, no bodyguards, no Escalade, just leather and the road. That is who he was on that night. Not a CEO, just a brother honoring a brother. But now, standing in her doorway in a charcoal overcoat, the other side of him was showing. And suddenly, the pieces started falling into place. The patch on his vest, the small T inside a gear shape, that was not a biker patch. That was the Summit Holdings logo. Claire had looked right at it and hung it by the heater to dry. The leather notebook, dark brown, gold-edged pages. That was not a journal. That was his daily planner, the kind a man carries when his schedule runs a thousands-person company. The way he said, "Yes, ma'am." The way he took his boots off at the door. The way he folded the quilt she gave him. The way he silenced his guy with a look when feet went on the couch. That was not just politeness. That was discipline, the habits of a man who ran boardrooms for a living. And the magazine, the one under her kitchen table, propping up the wobbly leg. America's most unconventional CEOs. His face was on that cover. She had been using it to level her table for months. Clara stared at Harlan. Then she started to laugh. Not a polite laugh, a deep, full, surprised laugh. The kind that shakes your whole body. "I used your face to keep my kitchen table from wobbling," she said. Harlan laughed too, hard. The suits by the car looked at each other, confused. The ice broke completely. But then Harlan got serious. He stepped inside, sat down at her kitchen table, the same chair, the same spot where he had eaten her biscuits some time back. He looked around the room at the buckets, the plastic windows, the kerosene heater doing the work of a furnace that did not run. Then he looked at Clara. "Miss Jenkins," he said, "I have sat in boardrooms with people who had every advantage in the world. Money, power, resources, and most of them would not have opened that door." He paused. "You had every reason not to. Every single one. And you did not just open it. You gave us everything you had." His voice was steady, but his eyes were not. "I have been thinking about that night every single day since." He leaned forward. "I want to do something. Not as a payment, because you made it very clear how you feel about that." Clara almost smiled. "As an investment," he said, "in you and in this neighborhood." The room was quiet. The heater hummed. The candle on the mantel, still there from that night, flickered once. Clara looked at Raymond's photo, then back at Harlan. She did not say yes. She did not say no. She said, "I am listening." What Harlan offered Clara that morning was not just generous. It was the kind of thing that changes a whole community's story. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folder, set it on the kitchen table between them. Did not open it yet. "I am going to walk you through this one piece at a time," he said, "and I need you to hear the whole thing before you say a word. Can you do that for me?" Clara folded her hands in her lap, nodded once. Harlan opened the folder. First, this house. He looked around the room, the water stains on the ceiling, the plastic on the windows, the buckets in the hallway. Summit Holdings is going to renovate your home top to bottom. New roof, new furnace, updated electrical, plumbing, insulation, every window replaced. Clara opened her mouth. Harlan held up a hand. "I am not finished." He looked at her carefully. "We are not tearing anything down. Raymond built that back porch. We are not touching it. We are fixing everything around it. Clara's eyes filled. She pressed her lips together, did not speak, but her chin trembled just slightly. Harlan turned to the second page. Now, I noticed something about you that night, Miss Jenkins, and I have been thinking about it ever since. He paused. You feed people. That is who you are. You made soup for 5 strangers out of almost nothing. You left plates on your neighbors' porches. You fed those kids after school. Feeding people, that is your thing. Clara said nothing, but her hands tightened in her lap. 2 blocks from here, there is a vacant storefront. Used to be Ridgemont Hardware. Been sitting empty for years. Clara knew the building. Passed it every time she walked to the corner store. Dusty windows, faded sign, weeds growing through the sidewalk cracks out front. Summit's charitable foundation is going to convert that building into a community kitchen and meal program. Full commercial kitchen, tables for 40, open several days a week. He looked at her. And you are going to run it? Clara blinked. Me? You. Head of operations, paid position. You will have a staff of 5, all hired from this neighborhood. We will cover everything. Rent, utilities, equipment, food supply for the first years. After that, we transition to a sustainable model with local partnerships. Clara stared at him. Her mouth was slightly open. No words came out. Harlan turned another page. Third, this street. He gestured toward the window. Maple Terrace. Cracked sidewalks. No streetlights on the south end. Kids playing in the road because there was nowhere else. Summit Foundation is putting up a block grant for Maple Terrace. Specifically sidewalk repair, new streetlights, and a playground right on that empty lot at the end of the block. He let that sit for a moment. The grant will be managed by a community board, local residents making local decisions, and I would like you to chair it. Clara's hands were shaking now. She pressed them flat against her knees. Harlan turned to the last page. One more thing. He set down his pen. This one was personal. She could see it in his face. Summit is establishing 2 annual college scholarships, $15,000 each, awarded to Ridgemont High School seniors who demonstrate community service. He looked at her. They will be called the Raymond and Clara Jenkins Scholarships. That is when Clara broke, not dramatically. Not the way people break in movies. She did not scream. She did not fall out of her chair. She just went very, very still. And then the tears came, slow, quiet, rolling down her cheeks, one after another. The kind of tears that come from a place so deep you did not even know it was there. The tears of a woman who had held everything together. Every bill, every leak, every cold night, every empty chair at the table for years alone without asking anyone for anything. And someone finally saw her. The room was silent except for the hum of the kerosene heater. Harlan did not speak. He just sat there, gave her the space. After a long moment, Clara wiped her face with the back of her hand, took a breath, steadied herself. Then she spoke quiet, almost a whisper. You are telling me those kids on this street are going to have a place to play? Harlan nodded. And somebody is going to help them go to college. Yes, ma'am. Because I made soup. Harlan leaned forward. His voice was steady, but his eyes were full. Because you opened the door, Miss Jenkins. Another silence, longer this time. Clara looked at Raymond's photo on the mantel, looked at it for a long time, like she was telling him something, like she was asking permission. Then she looked back at Harlan. Can I name the kitchen after Raymond too? Harlan did not hesitate. You can name it whatever you want. Clara reached across the table. Small hand, his twice the size. They shook on it. Then we have got a deal, she said. And for the first time in that conversation, Clara Jenkins smiled, really smiled. The kind of smile that changes the whole shape of a face. The kind that comes from somewhere so real it almost hurts to look at. Harlan smiled back. Outside, the sun hit the snow on Maple Terrace and the whole street lit up white. But this story does not end with Clara. It ripples. Some months after that morning at the kitchen table, construction crews showed up on Maple Terrace. Trucks, scaffolding, workers in hard hats carrying lumber up Clara's front steps. The roof came off first. The old one, patched, leaking, held together with prayers and buckets. Gone. Replaced with new shingles. New flashing, new gutters. Then the furnace, a real one installed in the basement. For the first time in over a year, Clara turned a thermostat dial and felt warm air come through the vents. She stood over the vent in the hallway for some time. Did not move. Just stood there with her eyes closed. New windows went in. Double paned. No more plastic sheeting. No more tape peeling off in the middle of the night. Electrical, plumbing, insulation in the walls and the back porch. Raymond's porch stayed exactly where it was. They worked around it, just like Harlan promised. Clara sat on that porch the morning after the renovation finished, coffee in hand, no coat needed inside anymore. She looked out at the street and whispered, "We got a new roof, baby." Later, the Raymond and Clara Jenkins Community Kitchen opened its doors. The old Ridgemont hardware storefront, dusty windows, faded sign, weeds in the cracks, was gone. In its place stood something alive: fresh paint, warm lighting, tables for 40. A commercial kitchen with steel counters and a 6-burner stove that made Clara's eyes go wide the first time she saw it. A sign hung above the front door, hand-painted, simple. The Raymond and Clara Jenkins Community Kitchen. Clara was there early on opening day, wearing an apron that said head chef, even though she told everyone she was just warming things up. Hundreds of people came through that first day. Single mothers from the east side who had not sat down for a meal in weeks. Elderly folks who had not eaten with company in months. Teenagers who came in after school because it was warm and somebody actually asked how their day was. Local news showed up. Camera crew, reporter. They asked Clara how it felt. She said, "It feels like any other day. We are just feeding people." The story aired that night. Phones started ringing. 2 blocks away, the empty lot at the end of Maple Terrace became a playground. Small but perfect. A swing set, a climbing wall, rubber surfacing so the kids would not scrape their knees. The Donnelly kids were the first ones on it, running, screaming, laughing so loud you could hear them from Clara's porch. Loretta, Clara's neighbor, organized a Saturday morning porch and play. Parents sat on their stoops, watched the kids talk to each other, something that had not happened on that block in years. New streetlights went up on the south end. Sidewalks got repaired. For the first time in a long time, Maple Terrace looked like a place where people wanted to be. Spring came. The first 2 Raymond and Clara Jenkins scholarships were announced at the Ridgemont High Senior Assembly. One went to a girl named Tamara Davis, wanted to study nursing, first person in her family to go to college. The other went to Wesley Moore, planned to study civil engineering, wanted to come back and build things in towns like Ridgemont. Clara presented the awards. She stood at the podium, tiny, silver-haired, hands shaking just a little, and looked at those 2 kids. "Your job is not to pay this back," she said. "Your job is to pass it on." The auditorium was silent. Then it was not. The bikers came back too. Harlan, Vance, Brody, all of them, leather cuts on, riding in on a clear Saturday morning for the kitchen's opening weekend. They sat at a table, ate Clara's soup, same recipe from that night. Brody took a spoonful and grinned. "Still better than my mom's." Vance brought his daughter this time, 5 years old, blonde curls. Clara hugged that little girl like she had known her all her life. A Columbus TV station picked up the story, then a regional newspaper. Then it went wider, shared online, reposted screenshot after screenshot. Harlan's company launched an annual initiative, Open Door Day. Every year, Summit employees volunteer at community kitchens and shelters across Ohio. Inspired by one woman, one night, one open door. Clara hated the attention. "I did not do it for cameras," she told Loretta one evening on the porch. "Si." Loretta smiled. "I know. That is exactly why they are here. But there is one more moment in this story, and honestly, it is the one that got me. When another storm rolled through Ridgemont. Not as bad as the first, but bitter cold, heavy snow. The kind of night that empties the streets and locks the doors. But one door stayed open. The Raymond and Clara Jenkins Community Kitchen. Lights on, heat running, soup on the stove. Clara kept it open late that night. She did not have to. Nobody asked her to. She just looked at the weather report that afternoon and said, somebody might need a warm place tonight. So she stayed. She made a double batch of soup, stacked blankets by the door, put coffee on, wiped down the tables, and turned every light on so the building glowed from the street. It was quiet. A few regulars came through early, ate, thanked her, went home before the snow got worse. Later, Clara was alone. She stood at the counter, wiping a bowl that was already clean, listening to the wind outside. Then, a knock on the door. Almost the exact same time. Almost the exact same sound. Clara sat down the bowl, walked to the door, opened it. A young woman, mid-20s, white, shivering so hard she could barely stand, holding a toddler wrapped in a blanket against her chest. The child's face was red from the cold. "My car broke down," the woman said. Her voice was barely there. "On the highway we walked. I do not know how far. I saw the light." She was crying not from sadness, from relief, from being so cold and so scared and finally finding a door that was open. Clara did not hesitate, not for 1 second. Same voice, same words. Well, get in here before you freeze to death. She took the child, wrapped him in a warm blanket, set him in a chair by the heater, heated soup, poured coffee, called a tow truck. Then she sat across from the young woman. Let her cry, let her breathe, let her get warm. The woman looked at Clara through wet eyes. Why are you being so kind to me? Clara smiled, soft, steady. Somebody knocked on my door once too, she said. This is just what we do here. Outside, the snow kept falling. The wind pushed against the windows. But inside the kitchen, warm light, warm soup, 2 people at a table. The sign above the door glowed in the storm. The Raymond and Clara Jenkins Community Kitchen. Clara picked up the ladle, poured 2 more bowls, and they ate together. I am not gonna lie, this story messed me up a little. Like, this grandma was broke, barely making it, and she still gave everything to 5 dudes she never met. No flex, no clout, just because. If that does not make you think, I do not know what will. If this one moved you, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs it tonight, and subscribe so you do not miss the next one. Because these stories, they are everywhere. We just have to.